ate noodles with no packet. Cereal with the can.
We break all the rules. The fucking goy!
I'm feeling a little bit useless lately, but then I saw this tweet. Why is all this blatant Epstein stuff not the front page of every newspaper right now? Why do I feel like I'm indulging in an unfounded conspiracy theory when I mention docs literally published by the DHS? Why do I feel like a bystander on the street wouldn't have even heard about it? We've got evidence of a billionaire pedophile cabal. Why do I feel like some people are just like...
First of all, guys, let me tell you straight honest facts right now. Anything that they release, especially since this was released by what, the DOJ? The defense, whatever of justice. Listen, anything that they're doing here, they're doing some other bullshit here, okay? So in my personal opinion, and allegedly, they released the Epstein files so then we would be distracted whilst they go to war with Iran. Just a ting, okay? Let's get into the video.
Yeah, well, business as usual. Why? And I saw that tweet and I was like, oh, tap me in. I think I can help answer. Just a little bit. All right, to answer this, let me start with a question. When you think about the world, the wider world, news, injustices, various issues that we all must tackle as a globe, do you ever find yourself wondering if it's all bullshit? How often do you approach media with suspicion? Is this paid for? Is this...
All the time, bro. But this is what I'm telling you that I've told everybody who watches my stream is pay attention to the narrative. Pay attention to what they tell you. The only reason why the Epstein files were released is because of hubris. They were so arrogant in thinking that this would never come out that eventually it came out. And all this performative stuff that's happening with Bill Clinton on trial, all BS. It's all BS. Be careful of the narrative. Be careful of the story that they fabricate and they sell to you, telling you this is what it is. Do your own due diligence. Do your own research, okay? Allegedly, in my opinion.
AI? Is this manufactured outrage? Is it propaganda? A distraction? A total fabrication? Basically, do you ever find yourself doubting your ability to know anything? So when it comes to our epistemological bases, what we know, how we know stuff, a little bit of doubt is healthy. It's pretty good, actually. Questioning your own beliefs gets you to throw out some bad ones that no longer serve you. It gets you to ask constantly what evidence would change my mind and get better ideas. And through this process, you find yourself with a better worldview. But what happens when there is too much doubt? When people experience too much doubt when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to knowing stuff, they usually don't participate. Common reactions include cynicism, like just deciding that the truth is inherently unknowable, tapping out completely, being like, oh man, I just can't, and silence and compliance. Just not knowing enough to know if you should be angry or if your dissent would even help. Cynical, uninformed, and silent. This is like the basis for a passive, obedient citizenry. And turns out there is a...
Yeah, and the majority of everybody is under that sort of, what we can call it, some sort of dormant state. They live in this dormant state because of information overload. When there's too many choices, you suffer from choice paralysis. Too much content, you suffer from feeling sick. Have you guys been on Instagram lately? The app makes me sick. Makes my stomach churn in anger.
A propaganda technique that gets you all of these things. It's called flooding the zone.
Your study of propaganda is important not only to you, but to me and to the world.
Welcome to Propaganda Academy.
There is a propaganda technique called flooding the zone. Sometimes it's called the fire hose of falsehood. It's also sometimes called gish galloping or spreading, but here's how it works. Let's say you're a power-hungry...
Excuse me?
...politician. All you want is money, power, status, and no to be feared or whatever. You are like a balloon, a helium balloon, just set to rise in the current system that we have. But you've also done some really shady stuff in your past, and if that stuff ever came out, you could find your entire life over. Ruined. Yes, you are this rising helium balloon in politics, but you're vulnerable to just a tiny pin. A tiny pin of truth wielded by the journalist who can just pop you and your downfall begins. Using the truth to topple power is a pretty common historical pattern. It tends to excite a populace and make people revolt. 3 examples off the top of my head. You got Martin Luther nailing his criticisms of the church onto its door, more or less starting a gigantic religious schism with the truth. Richard Nixon's unraveling came with Watergate, which was journalists, and Harvey Weinstein, who, to be clear, did it to himself. But the injustices of Harvey Weinstein were only met with actual consequences once people found out. The Me Too movement, basically. So these are all moments when the tiny pin of truth pops the gigantic helium balloon of power. Now, if you have done something pretty bad...
Listen, this is going to be a controversial take, bro. This is going to be controversial. I don't care what anyone says. It's the same thing that's going on with the Diddy files, okay? The Me Too movement, oh my God. Right? The Diddy files, right? You were faced with a situation where you said, my moral line and ethics and the things that I want. Essentially, you sat in a room with Satan, and Satan said, do bad thing, let me do this to you, and you can have everything you want. Now, if anybody came up to me and said, hey, Ceph, we just blasted some nigga's dome over there. I need you to clean up this mess. I don't care if it was Kanye West or anybody that I looked up to. If that was my first day on the job, I'm packing up my things and I'm leaving, okay? Have you ever felt this sense of looming evil when you're dealing with specific people? I've had the opportunity to shake hands with the devil, dude. I will tell you something. When somebody is money hungry, their soul is gone behind their eyes. You can't see shit. So when a nigga says, hey, I'm going to grab you by the poom poom for this roll, and you say, nigga, that's on you.
With regards to the Epstein files, it might be child rape, for example, something really, really horrible.
Aside from that, that's hey, that we won't even touch that.
That just like invokes this primal disgust in so many people. You'd do anything not to have that come out. You'd basically be buyable and threatenable at all times.
Blackmail is such an ugly word. I prefer extortion. The X makes it sound cool.
So in the case of Donald Trump, it'd be something like the rape case against Katie Johnson when she was 13, that she accused Donald Trump of raping her, which, by the way, was public knowledge before any of these releases came out. Just so we're clear. But you would know that there are certain pins that could take you down. Maybe it's a confirmed case, maybe it's a video, maybe it's a murder, whatever it happens to be. Now, one way to insulate yourself from this pin is...
Nigga, Trump, what are you... What? Nigga? All this money and all these baddies and models and you gotta resort to that?
To remove it. Anyone who dares to use the truth against you, you threaten them. Sometimes this takes the form of extreme censorship, and by that I mean literally killing journalists, witnesses, and whistleblowers. Other times it's bribes, other times it's soft power, like discrediting them before they can even get to the microphone, digging up something from their past and just exaggerating it, making sure that that is the first impression that people have of them in the media. But there is a structural problem with these strategies, and that is the needle is still there. The truth is still there. You are always vulnerable. As this rising wannabe Führer, you can still be brought down by the truth. So you come up with another strategy. Instead of getting rid of the needle, you add a haystack. You bury it. You bury it in so much pointless bullshit, just information that nobody needs, some of it good, some of it bad. And this is a specific design, and you just dump it on. You pile it on in order to hide the truth as much as possible. Nobody is going to sift through that, and even if they do sift through that, most people, when they hear it, are just going to assume it's just more bullshit. They're like, man, there's just so much noise out there. Why is this one true? Why is anything true?
Which is the idea of the majority of conspiracy theories, bro. Yes, some of them are true, and some of them is just it's a fabricated sort of counter to what the actual truth is. So then you have both people playing both sides, and no one will ever come to an agreement of what actually the truth is. It's propaganda 101, bro.
True.
He said the Democrats don't matter. The real opposition is the media. And the way to deal with them is to flood the zone with... You see there.
This technique, as I mentioned before, is called flooding the zone. Instead of focusing on what you want the message to be, you target the recipients of all messages. You make them doubt anything that has any kind of basis in reality. Things like independent and investigative journalism, things like science, you drown out their noise by creating more noise. And if nobody's getting clear signals, if nobody's agreeing on what reality is, there's no trust. Why do this? Because to some people, trust is a threat.
If I'm trying to predict what Donald Trump is going to do and where he's going to go, I mean, like one rule is look for where there's trust in the world and he will try to destroy it. He's really uncomfortable with trust. And I think there's a logic to it. And the logic to it is he himself is so untrustworthy. And I don't mean that as an insult. It's just true. He lies all the time. He stiffs people on deals, all that. That's the way he thinks you move through the world. Yeah. If we're in a world where we trust each other, he's at a disadvantage. He doesn't belong. But if he eliminates trust between people, he gets the world into a place where he's good at it. None of us trust each other.
Damn. Which allows him to prop up his ideas and propagandas even further. He's not a good businessman. The only thing he's good at selling is himself. And what did he really sell us? Aside from this big show, this big sort of reality soap opera that he's currently running America through. All BS.
Kind of evil, and it also has some really interesting ties to what it makes the general population do. When people are overwhelmed by too much information, when signals of fact and fiction and opinions and alleged statistics all hit one person, they do tap out. A typical response would be disorientation, cynicism, deciding that the truth is just inherently impossible to know. You raise the psychic costs for anybody speaking out because now they don't know if they are parroting misinformation or if they are actually even attacking the right thing, which produces a culture of silence. Your media landscape becomes one not of truth.
Oh, shoot. This nigga's in the corner like that. Like, why are you in the corner like that, bro?
But of uncertainty, which is
We're
pretty
in the
prime
same
ground for
corner
manipulation,
now,
and you create a
flip.
longing for a simpler time, sort of a lure towards conservatism.
Alright, thank you for getting out of the corner.
But that's not all. You also create a big, beautiful blank slate. You now have the ultimate power to come in and, if you are quite certain, to give people your narrative, your very certain narrative, people who are desperate just to hear somebody who knows what they're talking about. Essentially, you have people out there who are craving a new way to understand the crazy world around them. They are yearning for a narrative. And if you come in with just absolute certainty, like the original definition of con man, the confidence man, if you stand up and unabashedly say, this is what is good, this is what is bad, a lot of people are going to use you as their new yardstick of truth. You essentially capitalize on their fear, on their confusion, and become the new word of God.
Propaganda is to democracy what violence is to a dictatorship.
There's a really interesting paper on this that I recently read that highlights this propaganda technique, flooding the zone, as a key component to a fascist autocracy. That's crazy, right? I mean, you take the most famous fascist autocracy that people know, we'll go Godwin's Law, we'll bring up the Nazis, and the exact same technique can be seen with Goebbels. He saw the mass uncertainty as the ultimate opportunity. Hannah Arendt, I have a lovely little quote from her. In an ever-changing, incomprehensible world, the masses had reached a point where they would, at the same time, believe everything and nothing, think that everything was possible and nothing was true. The totalitarian mass leaders based their propaganda on the correct psychological assumption that, under such conditions, one could make people believe the most fantastic statements one day and trust that if the next day they were given irrefutable proof of their falsehood, they would take refuge in cynicism.
The goy, as Epstein said in the files. The goy will believe anything. The goy are stupid. Push this messaging onto the goy. Good goy, good goy. Good goy, goy. I'm telling you, man, the sheeple of today, they honestly, I'm telling you, their hubris is what this is the files, is their hubris. They're essentially saying, look at all the bad stuff we've done. What are you honestly going to do about it? What are you and I honestly going to do except to read it, to go on the site and read it and look through it and look through the correspondence between these elites? And what are we honestly going to do about it? We can't do anything about it. They're telling us right to our face, we are bad, we are evil, we do what needs to be done, and there's nothing the Goyim can ever do to stop us. And unless we're able to band together, it's the honest truth. It's honestly the truth.
Instead of deserting their leaders who had lied to them, they would protest that they had known all along that the statement was a lie, and would admire the leaders for their superior tactical cleverness. Basically justifying being lied to as 4D chess, baby.
Trump's 3D chess move.
He's actually playing 4D chess.
President Trump's 5D chess.
Drives you mad, doesn't it?
The ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the convinced communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction, and the distinction between true and false, no longer exists.
And that is flooding the zone on what it does. It's crazy, right? There are so many more propaganda techniques at play, but when it comes to answering that original tweet, why does it feel like nothing's happening, that nobody cares, or like the truth just isn't working or getting through? There's one more propaganda technique I want to cover. Poisoning the well.
Oh, here we go, boys.
The easiest way to explain poisoning the well is, let's say you and I were about to sit down and watch a movie. You know, we're chilling, we're on the couch.
Excuse me?
We go to watch it, but just before it starts, I turn to you and I say, oh man, I was reading the reviews for this. Apparently this is the worst movie of the year. I don't know if you've seen like all the hate it's getting online, but it's crazy. It's got like a 1-star average.
They're trying to control your thought process before you have your own time to form your opinions. Ladies and gentlemen, poisoning the well.
I think less than. Apparently nobody can act, like the dialogue's all weird and stuff. Anyway, let's watch. It doesn't matter how good the movie is, or even how true anything I've said is, you are going to naturally look for its flaws. And this is poisoning the well. Within one sentence, I have taken you from someone who could have enjoyed the movie to someone who is just going to be suspicious of it. Critical, cynical, primed to just not like it. We'll do 3 examples for the Epstein drop, so we'll do people, the document,
Which is actually similar to what they did with Colin Kaepernick. Remember Colin Kaepernick? The nigga who decided to take a knee? Right. He was essentially the black sheep of the entire BLM movement. He decided, no, I'm going to take a knee. And they used him as a proxy to be able to take down and say, look, If you stand against America as a colored person, this is what you'll get. He's never been allowed back into the NFL to this day. He stood up for the rights and the belief of what was true. And look, they played him like that. So they essentially poisoned the well to tell all the other blacks, don't do what he did. Don't do what he did. Even though in your mind, you know it's not necessarily an act of defiance. It's an act of patriotism and black excellence. But they've already poisoned this head. Any of you others try this, you could lose your career and your job. Just like that.
And then the wider narrative itself, which I think is just one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Poisoning the well when it comes to people usually looks like discrediting. If somebody does something that you don't like or something that could topple your message, you make sure that you get to the media first and say, oh, they got mental health issues, or they've got an arrest, or like a weird tattoo that could be a Nazi tattoo, or a bunch of weird stuff on their laptop. Just like saying, you know, this movie sucks, right? You're saying, you know, this person's crazy, right? And then they start talking and you just look for their flaws. The most harrowing example is obviously when you see it with victims, where people say, oh, this is a witch hunt, it's a hoax, they're just doing it for money or attention, you know, that kind of stuff. And when it is a person that you're discrediting, it's pretty straightforward. But it doesn't have to be a person. And here's our second example, poisoning the well when it comes to the document drop. In our example, where you are the billionaire pedophile, and you want to make sure that nobody believes the evidence, it's in your best interest to put out a bunch of fake evidence. Ideally, fake evidence that is way more ludicrous than what you've actually done. A fake document that says that you've eaten 10 babies' brains, something like that. I don't know, some crazy stuff. I imagine we'll see a bunch of this. But essentially, this achieves two goals. So firstly, it poisons the well of the documents. Your super ludicrous, insane, fake document amongst all the real ones, once it's debunked, and it should be debunkable, it serves as a question mark on all the real documents. When something does come out that is also beyond the pale of their morality, what they would ever do or what they could even conceive people of doing, they'll also say, well, I mean, that last one was fake. Who's to say this one's real? But then it does something else. Anchoring and normalization. Oh my God. So it anchors people to a crime that is far, far more disgusting than what you've actually done, even though what you've actually done is incredibly disgusting. But by making people think of this first, it defangs the crime. It's like that old saying, if you want a kitten, ask for a horse. Well, if you've killed a kitten, tell people you've killed a horse. In fact, get people to discuss killing horses so much that it becomes normalized in society. Which is where we get to our third example of poisoning the well. And this,
which is why they're showing us all these propaganda images of, you seen how every movie has become gorier than the last? Every movie has become just worse than the last. I know you could be thinking, oh, this is an example of me poisoning the well. Hold on a second. They want you to be just like them. They want you to be as nasty and as gory just like them. Because these are the things that these people do, the higher ups, the elites, right? So if you're just like them, then when things like this come out, you're not really going to be fazed by it. Because your thought processes and the way you think is similar to how they think. So the worst things are going to get, you're just going to brush it off and say, that's not that shocking. That's not that shocking. What is that? That's nothing. Whereas we all know that as we become more and more desensitized as a society, it's a making of their doing, bro. This is what they want you to be like. They want you to be so desensitized that the worst evil that they could possibly do, you just brush it off.
This is one of the most diabolical things that I think I've ever seen in my life. All right.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
It's a serious question. Do you think you're the devil himself?
I don't know. Why would you say that?
We now have evidence to suggest something that I've been saying for years, and that is that the culture war was a manufactured psyop. There's evidence to say it's not, of course, but the case for psyop looks like this. In October 2011, Jeffrey Epstein met with 4chan founder Christopher Poole. Moot. 4 days after Epstein met with Moot, the guy who introduced the pair, Boris Nikolic, an advisor to Bill Gates, emailed Epstein. This article describes why I find Moot interesting. The potential for manipulation is huge. The article was about 4chan's ability to launch cyber attacks, manipulate Google search, and fuel a hive mind mentality. Now, the same month that this all goes down, 4chan launches the forum Poll, which became a cesspit for far-right extremists, and eventually brought us Pizzagate and QAnon. But why? Why would people involved in a billionaire pedophile cabal spread rumors about a billionaire pedophile cabal? And the answer is because it is the perfect way to poison the well. It means that the first time that most people ever hear about some billionaire pedophile cabal, they're hearing it from whoever in their network has spent the most time in a tinfoil hat. Probably someone who's terminally online, probably someone who's just a little bit nuts. So they associate the story, the billionaire pedophile cabal, with crazy people. Bruh. And meanwhile, this serves all your other goals. It anchors people to crimes that are just slightly more fantastical than what's actually going on. It normalizes talking about billionaire pedophiles, so when the conversation does inevitably shift to reality, people are used to it. It pre-bunks dissent just freaking virtuosically by conflating all dissent, all truth, all investigative journalism with crazy conspiracy theorists. The conspiracy theory, if you ever looked into that, that the label conspiracy theorist was created in order to pre-bunk all dissent for all issues. And then fourthly, my word, does it flood the zone. It's the perfect kindling for rumors and conversations. It's all unverified, but all incredibly scandalous. It's a whodunit. It's a mystery. It's a game. And it's tribal. It generates noise upon noise upon noise. Divisive noise. Oh, wow. That's like, I don't know, Steve Bannon is Nero and the world is Rome on fire. I don't know if that actually happened. Feels like it's probably apocryphal. You know, like one of those historical myths where the truth gets exaggerated here and fictionalized there. Which, I mean, given the subject matter, would actually be extremely appropriate. To compare the Epstein class to Nero, fiddling while the world burns, it's kind of fitting that we find ourselves once again doubting reality. But I'm not sure if it matters.
The same ideology comes to play when you think, oh, was he actually arrested? Did he really perish in the prison? The question is, we don't know. We can't say for sure if he was because we don't know what the truth is anymore. We've been lied to so much at this point that anything they could say or do, you have to just sort of sit back and say to yourself, well, I guess I have to come up with my own opinions on it. Or the best thing to do is to just focus on yourself. Who cares if the next billionaire whatever ring shows up here or a Pizzagate or whatever the thing is that could possibly be happening? Just know that if you found it or read it on the internet, it's probably bullshit. Ladies and gentlemen, live life for yourself. Be selfish, my friend, because everything else is absolute hogwash.